Hello, everyone, and welcome to the third Sky Sports Fantasy Football 21-22 preseason video from myself, Luke Williams, and Niall Murphy. Niall, how are we doing?
We are doing great. I've just watched my childhood club, St Johnstone, eke out a one-all draw in Istanbul. So I'm absolutely over the moon. I'm looking forward to tearing apart and assessing some people's teams this evening.
Yeah,
We received a lot of really good responses and some excellent teams to chew on. So looking forward to it.
100%. We put out a message earlier in the week, or Fantasy Football Scout did from their official Twitter, and we got quite a lot of responses. Lots of people sent in their team, so thank you for that. Obviously, in the interest of keeping the video time fairly low, because our last one was like 2 hours, we've picked 10 teams to go through and try and rip apart, give some advice, and that's what we'll be doing today. So let's not waste any time. Let's get straight on with it. We've done the fixtures and stuff over the last couple of videos. I think everyone's kind of aware of them. If we need to bring them up, I will do, but we're going to go straight in with the first couple of teams. So just getting them up on my screen there. So the first team we've gone for is from at FF Stuff 3. I know this guy actually, Frank. You'll be watching this, no doubt. He's got an excellent site which actually tracks a lot of the Sky data. So if you don't know who he is, I would certainly give him a follow because he is very useful actually for Sky information. So he's given us our draft, which hopefully you can see on the screen now on the left-hand side. He says, my early draft, I'm sure it will change. Kevin De Bruyne dependent on some pre-season minutes, but seems to be in the starting 11 for the friendly today. So there's his team. What do you think now?
You know what? I looked at it and I thought, this is brilliant. He's got De Bruyne in midfield, but somehow hasn't sacrificed a great deal at the back. So for me, I think like first impressions, really, really excellent. I don't know if you had any kind of first thoughts when you looked at his team.
Yeah, I thought it's really good. I mean, I think my very very first draft I put together, once I'd looked at a few of the fixtures, had the exact same front six. So was I'm pretty big on De Bruyne overall, to be honest. So yeah, I do really like it. Since then, I've sort of come off of De Bruyne and used that money to buff the defense a little myself. And obviously, I don't want to do that. I don't want to just say on here, you know, make your team like my team, which is incredibly hard when you're doing rate my teams. But overall, I just think it's really, really strong. The obvious submissions to me are a no Man City defense, but you know the fixtures aren't the best, so maybe you can be okay there. I mean, Robertson can do a job. It's obviously not Trent. I would probably prefer him, but he's obviously squeezed that money to get De Bruyne. And obviously, if De Bruyne goes big, especially as a captain versus Norwich, it won't really matter about all the other picks. So I also really like the fact that he seems to have taken on that sort of mantra of really going hard on a certain team. And obviously, the standout thing there is triple Aston Villa defence. So it really is go hard or go home because Villa managed say 3 clean sheets. He's absolutely laughing. If they get 2 out of 3, I think it's absolutely fine. So my only sort of feedback there would be I do really like that, but the Villa defenders, as we know, are not great for bonus points. So basically, if they don't get those clean sheets, you're looking at 2 or 1 pointers from the whole set there. So it's kind of I like it. It's eggs in basket, but it's probably not the safest one overall. That's my feedback anyway.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely right. I mean, I think Mings and Target are both pretty good picks. Now, normally you look at Villa and you think they're not going to get any bonus. But the games they've got, the first 3 games are so good that you don't know, they might actually pick up some bonus. I mean, they've got Watford and Brentford in the first 3, so that you don't know what they're going to be like in terms of possession stats. And actually, looking at the Championship last year, they kept less possession than Norwich, who are the other promoted team. So they might struggle for possession.
Okay,
In
yeah.
which case, that Villa might actually keep a couple of clean sheets and get passing bonus, and their defenders might be great value. So I can see the logic. Just a little bit risky, obviously, with the fact they didn't keep much bonus last year. But the fixtures are so good, and Webster I think is a great pick as well. I know that Brighton have had some injury worries and, with Duncan and Webster himself. Webster looks like he's back fully fit. We'll hear more about Duncan. It looks like he's coming back into fitness as well.
Dunk started training today actually. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's a positive sign. I'm not sure 1 week of pre-season will be enough to for him to get fully back up to fitness, but he's so important he'll probably be thrown in anyway. We'll lose
Yeah, I'd
Dunk.
imagine so. Yeah.
I like the Robertson pick as well. I assume that Robertson is there instead of Trent for budget reasons, but I still think Robertson's a really good pick. And
No bias here.
well, listen, some bias, I'll put my hands up to that. But what I would say, I think that if Liverpool lined up with Van Dijk um, in the centre back position, then Trent for me becomes a slightly better option. But if you take Van Dijk out, Liverpool's defensive passing stats tend to be much, much lower. But Robertson still continuously pushes it.
That's a good point.
So I do think that Robertson's a great option still. And the games they've got, home games, I mean, the Burnley game at home as well looks great. And obviously the Norwich game to start with. I could see Robertson getting passing and potentially threatening attacking bonuses as well. So, like, yeah, I think it's a really good team, this. And then we've not even talked about the front three. I think the reason we've not talked about the front three is because you'll see a theme emerging throughout this podcast.
100%, yeah.
Any of the same front three. And I find it very hard to criticise that attacking front three. That's been in the team that's in my draft. They've been the three attacking players that have been in most of my teams. Salah, Antonio, and Tony, of course, and you're getting captaincy options from them. They're all prolific goal scorers, and they've all got reasonably good fixtures as well. So, I like it. I like the differential in De Bruyne as well. We always say on this podcast how important it is to get players that are probably going to start, and obviously you can monitor his fitness, but he's returned now. He's back in training, and so you could captain him in all 3 game weeks, really. You could captain him against Tottenham, you could captain him against Norwich at home, and you could captain him against Arsenal at home. And Hawley loves playing against most of those teams. So I like it a lot. I mean, are we going to give a rating? Because if we are, I think this one.
I didn't really know what to do on the rating. It's so hard to judge, isn't it? I think we'll leave that off. I'm just going to say I think it's a really good team. It's template, but then it's slightly sideways of the template because you've got that De Bruyne pick in there and then the triple Villa. All the picks individually, I can't fault a single one. The passing bonus, I do think even against the lower teams, they'll struggle. They're averaging about 35 passes per 90 this is last season. So they're going to need some luck there. But, tackles can pop up for anyone. So that there is that chance. And yeah, I really like it. Let's move on to the second team, which I'm just going to bring up so I can actually read the names for you guys on my other screen. And that is Man on Martin. He's a guy from the Champ Man community, actually. Did really helpful videos. He says, check out the newbie, so it must be his first season. Funds for ECR to Bruno for 12 men in game week 1. So by 12 men, he obviously means making the transfer after Friday night and therefore getting 12 players rather than the 11. So I suppose I'll talk through this one. It's got the same front line. Can't fault that for a second. He's then... doesn't start with Bruno, but obviously says he's going to bring him in for Smith Rowe. So he's going for that extra Smith Rowe just on the first night to Bruno. Now, straight away off the bat, I would say that's probably not worth it. I don't know about what you think, Niall, because he's got Tony as captain there. So he's literally playing Smith Rowe for 1 game and then using a transfer. That's just a big no-no for me.
Yeah, totally agree. I mean, if you're going to start with an Arsenal player and move them on to Bruno or Salah or whoever, you may as well captain them in the first night, right?
Yeah, I mean, if you're doing it with Pepe, for example, as your captain or Aubameyang, then I could kind of see it. Even then, it's questionable. This way, the only way this works is if Smith Rowe hits like 2 or 3 goals, and then even he's not your captain then, and then it's probably debatable whether it's worth a transfer. Well, that would be worth a transfer, but can we see that? I mean, maybe, but that's a hell of a risk for me.
Yeah, it's 100% not worth the transfer in my book. I mean, if you're going to do it, maybe don't have Tony and have someone like DCL or you could even you could go for Iheanacho, or there's so many options at that in that region. Or you could even have Danny Ings, right? You could go for Danny Ings, who's just signed for Villa, 9.1, great price.
I think he wants the Arsenal one because he wants to remove him because the next fixtures are bad. So I understand that sentiment, but then there's no real need for Tony because I wouldn't say Tony's fixtures are good enough that you necessarily need him for 2 and 3. So I see what you're saying. Get an Ings in there or something like that up front and then use that other slot. Yeah. Okay. Mahrez, I'm really coming round to. Like, I love him in FPL because there's a bench, and I'm coming round to him in Sky as well. I don't doubt for a second there is some risk, but the guy is absolutely tearing it up in pre-season. I know that doesn't mean too much, but he is one of the very few fit attacking wide players that they have. Well, when I say fit, I mean the ones that didn't go to an international tournament, as we all know. So he should almost certainly, which I know is a risk with Pep, start against Tottenham. I would hope he would start against Norwich. And in that final game against Arsenal, I suppose that's a risk, but I still personally think he's in their best team, in the right side, and you think they might play their best team, whatever that might be in that game. So I do like it because the upside there, even if he plays one or two, could be enough for it to be worth it, especially if you're thinking about dropping the captain on him versus Norwich. I mean, that is highly risky because you won't see the team line up, but especially for these are the kind of things like in my B team, I'm almost certainly going to play with something like this as a result. I don't know what you think about Mahrez.
Oh yeah, I mean, the more we see of him, the more tempted I am to put him in my team. I mean, I would like to have a City attacking asset for the second game week against Norwich, and even more so in the third game week where the fixtures are poor and they've got Arsenal. So you get to see the team as well in the third week. So if Mahrez is starting, then it would be pretty tempting to go with him. I like him as a pick. I mean, I think De Bruyne, we obviously saw that in the last team, would take away those headaches, but you've got a good saving with Mahrez, and you can tell he's got, if you look at his defence, he's got Trent and Cancelo. Clearly he's been able to afford both of them by having Mahrez instead of De Bruyne. And if I think Mahrez has played in all three of City's pre-season matches and he's scored in every single one.
I think so, yeah.
So he looks like he's coming into the season fully fit and firing. It's Pep. You're going to have to take a risk. He's probably a gamble, I would say. He's an educated gamble, but he's a gamble nonetheless. And so That's why I'm on the fence. But I think if I'm looking at my two teams, Mahrez will be in at least one of them, I think.
Yeah, and I know we bang on about having nailed on players in this game, 100%. But I think pre-overhaul, like if you're ever going to own Mahrez, it's probably now is the time to do it, because obviously then you just correct it after the 3 games, right? So it's almost like a free shot at a real high upside player. So I don't hate it at all. I think if you are slightly worried, you just go Gundogan, who could do just as well as Mahrez and is probably a little bit safer and he's cheaper. So I feel like the safe managers will probably do that if they want a Man City attacking asset. However, I think today they've just signed Grealish. I mean, I don't know how fit he is, whether that impacts Gundogan or not. I wouldn't have thought so, but maybe. There's rumours he might want to play in that position. We all know the risks with City. I mean, he's got Cancelo there as well. Much of this applies to him, to be honest. Game-breaking potential, but the same factors apply there, so I'm not going to bang on about it. Personally, maybe risking 2 of them, I will probably do in my B team, to be fair. But I wouldn't do it in both your team, basically, just in case. For me, Veltman, he is a very good pick. The thing is, Webster is 0.2 less, and I think that considering Veltman's looking likely to play in the back 3 at the moment, just the way their injuries are, I probably slightly prefer Webster because his passing stats were a lot better than Veltman. Now, that might be because Veltman did play at right wing back a lot and therefore didn't have the opportunity to get the passing bonus, but I think just the natural instinct of the player, Webster's a pretty good ball-playing centre-back, so I would be inclined to go there. On the flip side, if Veltman does start at right wing back, I probably would just prefer him just for the outside chance he could get an assist and tackles, and passing bonus is not 100% assured for these guys anyway, because Dunk seems to dominate it more than the other two. So I don't think there's too much between it, but I probably just prefer Webster myself. Digne is an interesting one. He's got really good games, really. In home to Southampton, now they've got no Ings as well, just stands out as a clean sheet. Set pieces looking likely for him with the Sigurdsson issue, and then James, it looks like he might be leaving, we're not sure. So it looks like he might have a monopoly on those. So it makes him a good pick, but I'm just not 100% sure this guy is actually a Sky player because he doesn't really get the passing bonus or the tackle bonus that often. So you are heavily relying on those attacking returns. The fixtures are good enough where I think it's okay, but he wouldn't be at the top of my list personally. What do you think, Niall?
Yeah, I'm totally with you. You look at the games, Southampton at home, Leeds away, Brighton away. You could see 2 clean sheets there, possibly, but he's not someone who's prolific at getting bonus. So immediately, for his price tag, I think he's probably at the highest end of what I would pay for someone who doesn't get bonus at all.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I would maybe look elsewhere for that 4th defender, but I think overall this team's really, really good. Veltman, I think as well, he's cheap, but you can save 0.2 with Webster if you are going to go for a Brighton defender. So I'd probably save a little bit of budget there. And the budget that you save on on downgrading Veltman to Webster. You might be able to upgrade Dean to somebody else who's possibly more capable of getting
Yeah,
you some
I mean,
goals.
just going. I can't remember what Dini's price is. That shows you how much I've looked at him. But Dunk, I imagine, is quite close, and I just prefer Dunk, for example, even though it is a double up. I think this team has got all the earmarkings of someone who is brand new at the game but knows what they're doing in fantasy. This is the kind of team I'd expect someone who plays FPL to come straight into Sky and kind of pick and think it's really good. And it is really good. It's just that there's a couple of little niche things that apply to Sky that I would maybe apply to this. This doesn't mean that this team can't smash exactly what I'm saying in three, because it's 3 games at the end of the day. Anyone can do really good in 3 games. So yeah, solid effort from me. So I'm going to move on to the next couple of teams on the slide here. Sorry, the sizes of the teams are all different here. It's because people, when they've sent them on the Twitter feed, have obviously taken screenshots, and they're all different sizes on different phones and etc. So a little bit smaller on this team on the left here, but it's from a chap called Luke Seaton on Twitter, and he's called it his punt team. So I thought I'd include it because it'd be quite interesting to talk about. We already mentioned quite a few of the teams are similar. So the teams up on the screen here: Salah, Aubameyang, Mahrez, Bowen, Fernandez, Barnes, Masuaku, Robertson, Veltman, Cash, and Martinez. And he does say it's his punt team, so I assume he's got another one which is slightly safer. So what do you think about those punts now?
Yeah, I mean, he's not wrong. It's a punty team. You've got initially straight out of the bat with Aubameyang captain. I love that. I love that in a punt team because I don't think you're going to want. Most people are not going to want to have an Arsenal attacker after game week 1 because they've got 2 pretty tricky fixtures. But if Aubameyang gets a brace, which we know he's capable of doing, immediately you've got a huge advantage over the rest of the pack. And if you wanted to use a transfer in your punt team early on, why not? If he gets a brace in the first game, pop him out, bring in an Antonio, or bring in another top striker.
It's a high upside punt team, which is exactly what the other team wasn't with the Smith Rowe pick for me. So that's why I prefer that one over the previous one. Yeah, exactly that.
Totally agree. And I think that sometimes you do need to take risks. I do worry a little bit that there's maybe one too many punts in this team. I think Bowen is great, but clearly you could probably have Antonio if you're going to have Masuaku as well. I feel like the defence probably doesn't get the best value. Veltman could be downgraded, as we've talked about there. Veltman could be downgraded. Cash could be downgraded, and that means that you could get Antonio in instead of Bowen. Now, I think Bowen's a good choice. In a 4-3-3, he's probably a great choice where you've kind of exhausted the options up front. But in a 4-4-2, you could have another striker. So maybe you could have Antonio instead of Bowen if you made some compromises elsewhere. But I do like it. The reason I say there's maybe a risk too many is that if you look at that team, is Masuaku absolutely nailed on to start? I mean,
he's the one that screams to me that it's just not worth risking because he's just so injury prone as it is. I couldn't even tell you that he's 100% in their team. I know when they play with wing backs, he gets the left wing back role and he is very attacking, but the guy can't often stay fit. And again, you're not really going to get any bonus there. The fixtures are decent. But I think if you're going to go for a West Ham defender, you just go for Kufal on the off chance that he gets tackle bonus, and obviously his assist threat. I mean, he got 9 last season, I think. So that could be useful. With you, I don't hate Bowen at all. I think he is actually a really good one because, again, this is a high upside pit because if everyone else is going Antonio and you've got Bowen and he does well and Antonio doesn't, then suddenly you're doing better against a lot of the top managers that will be on Antonio. So again, I don't hate that at all. It's just I agree with you in the 4-4-2. I think 3 strikers is actually really quite important in Sky most of the time. So I wouldn't do it there. Barnes I love. There's not much to say on Barnes. He's obviously great. Again, he's just another one where you're not 100% he'll play all 3 of the games. Just come back from a big injury as well. So, it is a punt team and it could work really well as long as you've got another safer team alongside it. The only pick I would look at there personally is Masuaku. I'd look at something else there. Maybe just go a little bit more boring and double up with the Brighton defence again or something instead of him. I'm not even sure what price Masuaku is.
I think he's 6.9, so he's...
Right.
You couldn't move Masuaku you couldn't move him to Webster because he's not got the budget, but you could possibly even just bring in, if you want to have a cheap option at the back, bring in Truce de Kong from Watford maybe, 5.5, and that would free you up to do all sorts of things with the team if you really want to go bold and go for big points.
Yeah.
The issue I've got is, this team could make you some great gains, some niche gains that other people aren't making. But equally, I could honestly see you having to make 3 transfers before the overhaul of this team.
Yeah, that's it. Another avenue, of course, although Martinez is probably the top goalkeeper choice, he is 7.2, and there's lots of viable ones that are cheaper, so you can just move him down to a Sanchez or whoever, to be honest. Backman, there's lots of keepers. You could even chance the Brentford one. Just any cheap starting goalkeeper should be fine for 3 weeks, to be honest, and then obviously that frees you up some cash to do something there. But yeah, nice sort of punt team there. Don't mind that at all.
I think the final word I would say as well on that, look, is that if you're going to have a punt team and you're going to be cavalier and you're going to do things that are a bit different, why not just have a block defense? Why not just go all in?
Yeah.
If you're gonna take huge risks, go, just put everything on the table and go for a block Villa or a block West Ham or a block Brighton and just throw the kitchen sink at it. And if it doesn't work, you put it in the bin. But I feel like with this team, it's a high risk, high reward, but I feel like if you're going to go high risk, you may as well just go as high as you possibly can and take
that.
Yeah, that's my approach. But
love that. Yeah, no, I agree. Flair is the name of the next person, FPO_Flair. So maybe he's got some of that mantra as well behind him. First team is the boring template you'll get many times. So he obviously knows the score here as well. But the second is spicier. So he's given us his spicier pick. Just for the podcast, we've got Martinez in goal, Dunk and Webster at the back, alongside Konsa in a back 3. Fernandez, Sancho, Buendia, Maddison in centre midfield. And then we've got Salah, Vardy and Wilson. So there's a few names we've not seen there yet that are, kind of interesting. What do you think?
I like it. I really like it. I really like the Wilson pick up front. I'm going to start there. They've got decent fixtures. He did well last season. I think when it came to strikers, he was up there amongst the highest punch scorers over the season. He's good value still. He's cheap enough, and he offers you a captaincy in game week 1 if you want to captain him at home to West Ham, which isn't the worst game, right? I mean, West Ham are half decent, but that's not too bad. Listen, it's a punt team. You said it's spicy. It definitely is spicy. Vardy, I don't know about him. I don't want to be I don't want to make a projection that's going to come back to me all year if he has a great season, but I think Vardy might be on the way out. I think Daka's signing probably suggests that they're looking to phase him out. This might be his swan song, so you might do that. You do well, but I think if you can get your natural in there and save a bit of cash, might be an option too. I
did think that, but of late, I mean, even today, Leicester have gone with one up front again in their friendly, and they put Vardy up top as the main man. So, how much stock we put in that, I don't know. And as we're on the flex of if you're going to do something random, it's got to be a high upside pick. I mean, he is right. He gets penalty. He either gets you 2 points or he gets you like 20. That's like classic Vardy. So, I don't hate that, and the games are pretty good. I suppose if you're just thinking to yourself, I want to go in on Leicester's attack. Right now he probably is the safest pick. So, I personally don't hate that. I certainly won't have him anywhere near my team for myself, especially after the overhaul. But I don't hate it.
Yeah, I think his pricing is quite ridiculous when you think some of the other players who like Calvert-Lewin. So Vardy's 10.6.
I don't see him as value at all. But again, for these 3 weeks. Yeah, exactly. The value's awful, but as a punty striker for the first 3 weeks, maybe not the worst idea, because again, it's not. I mean, Vardy and Wilson, I don't think hardly anyone's going to have those two in their front line. So if they do fire, you're off to a flyer. He's then gone and put Maddison with him as well. Is that too much?
I don't know. I don't think so. Listen, if it's a punt team and you're putting everything in on it, right? So I see he's doubled up on Manchester United and doubled up on Leicester attack. If they get off to a flyer, then likely that Vardy and Maddison will have hauled big time. So, and I like it. This is what I said before about the block defence. I feel like if you're going to make a punt and you're picking out some teams that you think are going to get good returns, either defensively or attacking wise, then you go in hard on them. And I think that's what he's done here. He's got double United attack, he's got double Leicester attack, and you can see at the back he's got double Brighton and double Villa. Like, if those four teams perform, then the players that you've got from those teams, I suspect will have obviously done pretty well.
Yeah.
So no, I do like it. And this is what I keep coming back to on a second string team. If you're willing to use your second team as effectively a kamikaze effort, right? It either comes off or it doesn't. Then you may as well stock up on teams that you think are going to do well. And this is what I like about his team, that he's done that. He's decided that he thinks Leicester are going to have good attacking balls, and so he's doubled up on them. So I think that's good. And I think Maddison, again, I'm a little bit. I suppose I'm a little bit uncertain as to who is going to actually start in those attacking roles for Leicester. But if Maddison does start, then yeah, we've seen Harvey Barnes in the last team. I'm sure we'll see Iheanacho too, and we've obviously got Vardy here. So will all of them start? I'm not entirely sure they will. So I think that's just a little bit of something to think about. And I don't know what your views are, if you think that Maddison will be a good option, but there's also a lot of rumours about him potentially getting a transfer too.
Yeah, the Maddison one's tricky because generally when Maddison's fit, he plays for Leicester. It's always been that way. They've always made him just come straight back into the team as soon as he's available. There's a few times he's been on the bench, but that's usually because he's working his way back from fitness. But this time maybe feels a little bit different because of like the injury, the terrible injury to Fofana the other night. I think that means they're almost going to be forced to a back four and playing Barnes on the left. Now, if you play Barnes on the left and you're playing Vardy up top, which is what it seems to suggest, where does Maddison fit in? Are they going to put him on the right wing slightly? Maybe they're going to play him in a 3 in midfield. Not 100% sure. If he's deep in the midfield, ironically, it can work better for passes, but he's never been a player who... Well, he has flirted with it occasionally in the past, but it's not something you can bank on, put it that way. And I'd really want to put someone in the front three, to be honest. Which I'm not 100% sure he would be. And then obviously we've got one spot on the right there for potentially Iheanacho, for Daka, for Perez, for whoever. They've got quite a few options. So a little bit risky. The Sancho one as well. He's only just come back. I think he's come back today. Or no, actually he's not in training today, I saw. So I'm not sure when he's due back. There was rumours it's going to be another week yet. So he is really punty right now because I just don't know whether he'll start the first game. And essentially, if you're just almost confirming yourself to get 2 games rather than 3, then for me, he's just not an option as a result, which is upsetting because he could light it up. And these kind of players, Sancho is exactly the profile of the kind of player who will get man of the match for taking to the pitch. Essentially, he's Man United's new golden boy, tricky, big fee. Only has to get one return, and I wouldn't be surprised if he took man of the match away from Bruno. But at the moment, with the information we've got, it looks like he might be getting 2 games at most, so I probably wouldn't go there. Rest of the team, can't really argue with it. I know it's a bit different, but I like it. I like it a lot. The double up on Villa and double up on Brighton, they're the 2 teams with probably the best defensive fixtures, and he's just gone all in on those 2 teams, so fair play. Let's move on to our next set of teams. So we've got... a team here from Craig Kemp. He says, "Be nice. We shall try, Craig." I know it's his first season, actually, because he spoke to me before. So we've got Martinez in goal, a very common theme here. Dunk, Shaw, Webster, and Trent Alexander-Arnold at the back. Nicolas Pepe in midfield with Sarr from Watford. Bruno Fernandes, and then up front we've got Salah, Watkins, and Antonio. Now, I'm going to give it... I think the Watkins one, maybe he sent this before the news, so maybe he just changed him straight to Ings. That's probably what I'd do as my first bit of advice anyway, if I was to give it, but maybe not. I still think he's a pretty decent option. But yeah, I really, really like this team. What do you think?
Totally agree. I like the Pepe shout in the first game as well. I mean, most of the teams that I'm seeing on Twitter I've got Tony up front, I think. So, yeah, I mean, Arsenal are going to be the favourites for that match. So I think the rest of us, we're picking Tony because he's got a good game in the second week and a good game in the third week, and Arsenal's fixtures are horrific. So if you're getting a double shot at it because you're throwing the captaincy. So no, I think Pepe is a good shout. Whether he's going to prove to be value in game week 2 and game week 3 when they've got harder games, I don't know. But no, I do like it. And as you see, he's broken the template a little bit up front by allowing himself to have Watkins. Now, we did mention this was probably sent before the Ings signing was announced, but you could move Watkins to Ings, who I suspect is probably going to take penalties.
Yeah, he's 0.1 cheaper as well.
One cheaper as well. So if you took Watkins out, brought in Ings, he's got Salah, Ings, and Antonio. That's a great front three. And he's not taking a gamble on Tony. So I like that a lot. The midfield, he's got Bruno in there. I think most people have Bruno. Talked about Pepe, and he's got Sarr, which I like Sarr. Their fixtures are pretty good too, and he's one of the best attack, well, if not the best attacking option for Watford. He's cheap. A lot of people have had Buendia, who I think we actually somehow managed to skip over, despite the fact he was in three of the first 4
Yeah,
teams.
it's just so common. It's almost like
how popular he is, definitely. So Buendia is obviously a fantastic option, but Sarr is slightly cheaper, I think.
Yeah, he's 7.8.
7.8, so he's 0.1 cheaper. You can tell he's maxed out his budget here. So Sarr is an alternative to Buendia. I like that a lot. He's the kind of player that can get a 13, 14 point haul in a game. And if you get one of those in the first 3, then you've really justified having him. And again, looking at the defence, Trent Alexander-Arnold, yeah, I think he'll be in a lot of teams. He's Liverpool's premium defensive asset and has looked in good form in the season. Will definitely be starting as well for the first 3 games. So yeah, like that. Webster, we've talked about Webster already. It looks good and is probably one of the best budget defenders on offer. Lewis Dunk, again, if he's fully fit, we'll find out more about that. And if he's going to be ready to go for the start of the season, I think he boosts all of the Brighton defence's appeal, and he can do everything. 8.2 is good value for him. And then Martinez in goal, yeah, probably the best goalkeeper you can get. The only other defender that he's got is Shaw, who I'm a little bit iffy on, just by virtue of the fact that he's probably not had much time. By the time the season starts, he won't have been back for very long.
I think he just plays all 3. Like as a Man United, Tellez is injured as well. I honestly don't think there'll be a problem with the starts there. For me, it's more whether he's I mean, he is a really good player, and he did do really well actually in the back end of the season in Sky as well, despite them not getting clean sheets, because he was picking up the odd bit of bonus and obviously was quite a threat. I think also with the England focus and everything, I know there's a lot of players in the Man United team that could pick up the man of the match, but I think he is in the frame because he is basically our playmaker for a lot of the game as well. As you saw for England, he can do it. So yeah, I don't hate that pick at all. I haven't really looked at him myself, but this has made me think maybe I should. So I do really like this team. Like you say, the Pepe thing, he could easily get a massive head start there over Tony. It's carrying for the next 2, which is the worry, and that's why I think a lot of us have gone for Tony, because we're more happy to carry a player at 7.9 million for the other 2 games than we are an Arsenal midfielder. But maybe that's unwise, to be honest, because they could still do fine, and Tony could just be not that good. We just don't know. So, and if it allows you to have Ings, I mean, the other niche thing about his front 6 there, they're not 100% all confirmed on penalties, but Salah would be on penalties if Milner's not on the pitch. Ings is almost certain to be on penalties, I think, for Villa. Antonio has mentioned recently he kind of wants to take them. I mean, Noble's on the pitch, he does take them, and then Rice has been pretty terrible at them, even though he's been on them. So there is an outside chance he gets them. Very slim, but possible. Bruno obviously is. Sarr has been mentioned as being in the frame with penalties. Again, it's a kind of a Deeney thing, I think. If Deeney's not on the pitch, then Sarr will probably take it. And then Pepe himself has been known to take the penalties. I know Aubameyang, if he's playing, he's usually on them, but Pepe's taken a couple in pre-season. So there's a chance there as well that he could have all 6 on penalties, which I know there's been all this talk in the media they're going to try and give less of them, but they're still a factor, right? There's still going to be penalties throughout the season. So yeah, I like the team. I think it's one of my favourite ones that I've looked at so far, to be honest.
Great.
Right, let's move on to the next team, which is on the right-hand side there. So FPL Commander, at Commander FPL. He's not given us any guidance. He just literally slapped that team in there with confidence and said, give us a rating. So he's got Meslier in goal, Trent, Dunk and Digne at the back, Bruno Fernandes, Buendia, Pepe again, Rafinha, Watkins, Salah, Tony up top. What's your thoughts?
The only thing that screams out to me is who's he going to be captain on the Monday Night Football game week 2. So at the moment, he's skipping that game unless he makes a transfer.
Yeah, the West Ham Leicester game.
Yes, the West Ham Leicester game in game week 2. So Yeah, that's the only critique I would have of his team. So I guess that he's obviously got Tony in there, but he's also got Pepe. Personally, I don't think I would want to have two players on that night,
Yeah.
just because I don't think that either of them are such a strong draw that post that game they've got great fixtures or much to attract you to them. I do appreciate that Tony is good value, but if you're going to have Tony, I think I'd probably skip out on having an Arsenal player.
Yeah, I
Um,
agree. I think what he's done, maybe I'm just being presumptuous here, but because he's given us no guidance, it's hard to say. But I think maybe he's done that with the view to take out either Pepe or Tony for a Leicester or a West Ham player in the future. That would kind of make sense. But again, I go back to I'm not sure that would be worth it personally when we've got the opportunity to set up.
yeah, completely agreed. Completely agreed. He's got Watkins as well. We've talked about Watkins and what Ings signing might mean for him.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, there's no apart from the fact there's no West Ham or Leicester. I do like the team. I actually do like it
There's no
a lot.
individual weak players particularly, is there?
No,
That's the thing. Yeah.
he's gone for Rafinha, who I think I did my team reveal on the scout last week, and Rafinha was in my team. I think he's still a fantastic option, despite the fact that Leeds fixtures
Mm.
maybe do appear to be a little bit more stern than other teams like Villa um, and Brighton. I think he's still got great appeal. He can score in many games, and he's got that man of the match potential. He's got that goal dust. What I would say about Leeds fixtures is I'm not sure they set up that well defensively. And so Meslier, he's more expensive, say, than a Robert Sanchez. So I think you could make a decent save in there for a player who's got better fixtures. In goal, at the back, you've got Trent again. I'm not going to criticise anyone for having Trent in the team. I think he's
Yeah,
a
no,
great.
we've done most of the other picks, haven't we? So he can take the advice, obviously, from the other ones we've looked at as well. Again, a lot of the template picks here that we're seeing. I agree with you on the Meslier thing. I think season long, he's probably a better pick than Sanchez, but for the first 3 games, I don't think you need to spend the extra. I mean, there's a chance he outscores him just with saves and stuff, but I don't think it's worth taking the extra money gamble on it myself. But yeah, decent team again. Just maybe falling for that trap, unless he's planning to use transfers. Where again, I probably wouldn't myself. But if you want to get a good start and you want to use 1 or 2 transfers right at the beginning, you don't have to just completely not do it. I just feel like if you start off on that road, you can end up like myself and have like 5 transfers when there's like 15 games to go at the end, and just really be berating your decisions early on. I think with the overhaul being so short and just 3 weeks. I mean, the only one I really picked out, and a lot of people did, was the Salah to Kane thing. Now that looks like it's off anyway at the moment for saving that 0.1 and going Salah to Kane. So I think a lot of the top managers will either bin it entirely, or they will just now go Salah to Son, which is probably what I might do instead. And obviously Son's a lot cheaper than Salah, so you don't need to worry about the 0.1, which yeah, it's only a little bit, but how many drafts do you make with your 0.1 out? So it can make a difference. Let's move on to the next couple of teams we've got here. So the first one is from Ollie Paul. He says it's a second team draft. I've noticed this. A lot of people want to share their seconds. I don't know whether they're being secretive because they want to keep the winning formula to themselves. I can understand that. Or maybe they just want to spice it up for our video, so we appreciate that. So in goal, we've got Martinez again. I'm pretty sure he's been in, apart from the last one, I think he's been in every one of the other teams, to be honest. We've got Dunk Soyuncu, who makes an appearance at the back there. John Stones as well, and Rudiger. So lots of different defenders there. Bruno Fernandes, Buendia, Mahrez in midfield. We've seen that before. And then there's the classic front three again of Salah, Tony, Antonio, which I cannot fault. So I think we've talked about all of the front 6 there. He's got the captains covered. He's got all of that. He's got Dunk, which we know about, Martinez. So I think it's these 3 centre-backs here. What do you think about having those in your team from the beginning?
Right, so I'll start from the furthest out and move in. I'll start with Rudiger. Rudiger's obviously the first team we've seen him in, but he's someone who's featured in a couple of my drafts. We've talked about Chelsea's fixtures maybe being a little bit difficult, but I think they're possibly a bit overstated. And Rudiger, with a home game against Palace in the first game, you'd expect him to pick up passing bonus there. And then Arsenal, they could keep a clean sheet there, and then Liverpool in the last game. Who knows? That could be a drab 0-0. So I actually really like Rudiger as a pick, and he's someone who, in that new Chelsea system, picks up bonus both passing and tackling. So I think for 9 million, we've already talked about him in previous podcasts about being a really, really great post-overhaul pick, and I can see the value in going for him pre-overhaul. Soyuncu, now this team was obviously sent into us before the Fofana injury. I do worry a little bit that with Fofana's injury, that might affect Leicester defensively. I think there's question marks about, well, obviously Evans is not looking like he's going to be fit for the season, right? So what they do with their defence remains to be seen, and it's probably going to be a little bit makeshift. I still think they've got enough quality, but I do think it maybe takes away from them a little bit. And so Yunchu is a little bit more expensive. When you compare him to Lewis Dunk, who we've talked about, if they're about the same price, I think if Yunchu is maybe even slightly more expensive.
Soyuncu's 8.2 million, so there's an obvious switch to just a Brighton defender, isn't there? Be that Webster, or I'm not sure. Is 8.4 or is he 8.2?
Yeah, so they're exactly the same price.
Okay, yeah. So obvious switch there for me.
And then there's Stones, who hasn't featured for a minute yet in pre-season. And with the rotation, I do think Stones plays when he comes back, but I just don't know. I just can't confidently back him to start the season and play all 3 games at this point.
If he does, he's absolute gold, and I see why he's in there. I was listening to Planet FPL actually, and they've got a Man City correspondent on there, and I was listening to his views on it, and he was fairly confident that Stones would play game week 1 regardless. I think just because Laporte is kind of being touted around Europe at the moment, and he's made it clear he kind of wants to leave, so I think he's going off the basis of that. But then they've still got Ake, they've still got other players, so I think obviously we're going to get more information as we move on that. Right now, I'm with you. I probably wouldn't risk the Stones pick just because I haven't seen him even in training yet. So I'd want to see that. If we get some information, close to the deadline that he's fit and he's available to play, and Pep says he's that kind of build who can go straight in and all the usual things that he starts saying, then I might actually trust him for once and bring him in, because he is absolute gold at that price.
If Stones starts in the Community Shield, then
that's a good point. I forgot about that. Yeah,
I could definitely see him playing all 3 of the first games that he starts in that match. If he's not playing in that game, I don't know. It feels like a bit of a blind faith punt. In that Pep will bring him straight back in his first appearance since the Euros.
Yeah. I'd actually go as far as to say, I mean, Cancelo, I think if he's on the pitch, is probably arguably a better pick anyway, just on the upside, and he looks more likely to start the season, as strange as that might be, because Stones is probably more nailed throughout the season over Cancelo. But pre-overhaul, I'd probably back Cancelo to play at least 2 of the 3, which I know I've said previously is why I'd rule someone out. But in the case of Man City players, especially if they make that Norwich game, you could argue it may still be worth it. So yeah, Cancelo over Stones for me.
Good team though.
Good team, indeed. I like it a lot. Let's move on to the team on the right-hand side there. This is from Rob Pick, another one from the Champ Man crew. People are going to think I put some bias here. It wasn't on purpose, I promise. Just went down the list. He sent us his team, and he's put, here's a stinker, as in, I think he's put Tinker, because he's got S in brackets there. And Martinez in goal, Dunk, Trent, Pereira, it's a bit of a different name for Leicester, Webster, and then we've got the front 6, which we just saw in a couple of other teams. So Bruno, Buendia, Mahrez, Salah, Tony, Antonio. Can't fault that, really. We know the risk with Mahrez. So we've mentioned most of the back line as well. I really like this team. Think it's really solid. Pereira's a bit of a wild card, though. So he's gone for almost like, I suppose Mahrez you could count as a little bit of a punt, but he's gone for that one extra punt in Pereira. What do you think about that?
I like it. I mean, Pereira's the only player in this team that we haven't actually talked about so far. But I think he's good. I mean, I've got the same concerns about Leicester's defence that I'm just going to put out there. But he's someone who's more than just a defender, right? He can get forward. He was injured for most of last season, but if you look at previous seasons, he can tackle. He gets tackle bonus regularly. He's the kind of player that can even get shot bonus. He can score goals. He can get assists. And if Leicester get off to a flyer, then why not? Like, I think he could be a really, really nice little differential pick in there. And also, it's quite cool the way that he's pointing at the badge, which looks like he's pointing at Leicester.
Yeah, I didn't even notice that. Yeah, that's strange. I mean, Pereira's been. Rob's been playing this game long enough to know that Pereira was absolute gold once upon a time before his big injury for tackles. And even though he only played in 15 games, when you break it down per 90 and look at tackles on the members' side, he's at 2.75 tackles per 90, which is really pretty damn high again. And that was probably when he's not at his fullest even in some of those games. So He's probably banking on a bit of tackle bonus there from him, which is probably a wise bet. He will have sent this team pre the injury to Fofana, so maybe he's already thinking about changing it. I don't know how that would affect Pereira. I don't know if he'd have to. I mean, they're going to have to work out who's covering at centre back at the moment. I think if they are going for even a back two, it's not clear. There's Castagna as well. So in an odd way, it may benefit him because his game time wasn't assured, and now there won't be that sort of conversation about who's going to play on the right wing back slot between Pereira and Castagna, because one of them will have to fill in the back three, which oddly could benefit even Pereira. He's either going to be a great offensive threat on the right wing back, or he might be in the back three and therefore maybe get passes and maybe even more likely to get tackles. So yeah, there's one punt there, and I kind of don't mind that in the team because you've got to differentiate yourself a little bit if you can from everyone else. I know Mahrez is one way, but we've already seen he's quite common already, so it's probably not as different as you think amongst the top managers. So Pereira, yeah, don't hate it. 8.5 million. There are other options at that price, a little bit lower, but yeah, solid team. Let's move on.
No City defence. So
that's true. Actually, no City defence. I suppose it's just the desire to have. I mean, Dunk, for example, I do think he is the best Brighton option, but will he score significantly more points than Veltman to then have the extra money to play with for Pereira to then change it into a City defender? I'm pretty sure you could get close to maybe a Cancelo there or something. So, in fact, I think one of my teams looks pretty much exactly like that. So it's probably why I'm edging that way. Let's move on to the next set of teams. So they're up on the screen there. We've got Adam English on the left-hand side. He says bit off template this one. We like that. So we've got Salah, Mane and Tone up front. So Mane's made an appearance. We've got Mahrez, Bowen. Again, one of the team had him. And Sarr in midfield. One of the team had him. Llorente, Dunk, Robertson, Trent Alexander-Arnold. So he's gone for the double up on the wing-backs there. Or wing-backs. They're basically wing-backs. And Martinez again. So what do we think about that one?
Yeah, it's another cool team. Bit off template, as he says. I like it. I think let's start with the front and we'll work backwards. Salah and Tony, we've seen in most teams, if not pretty much every team. Mane. Yeah, I mean, Mane looks sharper in pre-season.
He does indeed.
Came out and said that he doesn't think he was up to the standard as he has been last year and wants to turn it around. So that's a good sign. And again, this is what we talked about, right? If you're going to go off template and you're going to do something that you think is a bit risky, if you think there's a team that's going to do well offensively, then
Salah, Mane, Trent and Robertson. Like, look at that four from Liverpool. You couldn't really ask for a better four, could you?
Exactly, with the double up at the back from Liverpool as well, and both are very attacking defenders in Robertson and Alexander-Arnold. If Liverpool put 4 or 5 past the team, he's on for an absolutely bumper haul.
Yeah, this team reminds me of last season when Man City had all those extra games and we all put like 7 Man City players in your team and they went ham in the games and you're just laughing like every time to the bank. Like if Liverpool are able to do that, I mean even in the first game versus Norwich, it could be a 4 or 5-0 straight off the back and you are laughing with that. So I do really like that, to be honest. I think that's brave, but it's it's very appealing.
And then again, he's almost going all in on risk. That I see here he's got his planned captains set out, and he's got the armband on Mahrez on Sunday.
Love that.
I love that. If he actually looks. If you're going to bank on him for captaincy, the first game of the 3 for the pre-overhaul looks like the one that he's definitely going to start. So yeah, I mean, I like it. I really like it. I mean, he could be sitting there after game week 1 on an absolutely huge score. Mahrez, Bowen again. We've had Bowen in a couple of teams.
He's covering West Ham there, isn't he?
Yeah, exactly. If you're not going to have Antonio, because he's obviously got Mane in there instead of what most people would have Antonio, he's got Bowen in to give the cover. I like that. I think that's decent. I mean, I did say in the previous team that Bowen probably could have been moved to Antonio, but that was simply because he was playing a 4-4-2, whereas this is a 4-3-3.
Yeah.
So I like Bowen a lot, and then Sarr. I think if you're going to be differential in there, and you've got around that price, you see a lot of Buendias, but I like Sarr as well. And I think that if you look at his attacking players, none of them are the kind of players that get bonus regularly, right? So they're all players that are dependent on goals and assists really to get points. But I like that in that if you're going to do that, now is probably the time to do
Yeah,
it.
exactly that. I mean, it hasn't come out yet for the scout, but I've basically done a team reveal where I've just looked at bonus players and just thought, like, I'm going to pick a team that's just going to pick up bonus points in every game, sit back, and hopefully it'll be quite safe. But to be honest, in the first 3 weeks, this is where we can collect that data and really just go all out for the attacking returns. I think that's probably a slightly better approach. Like a lot of these midfielders here, Højbjerg's probably going to end up outscoring them over the season. But Højbjerg will probably outscore Bowen over the season, if he doesn't get the minutes. But for the first 3 games, why not? Why not give it a go? I mean, we know Højbjerg's probably going to get 4 or 5 points in each game. So, yeah. Llorente, I do actually really like. We mentioned Cooper before. He's still not even in training, Cooper. His passing bonus was good. I'm not even sure now he's even first choice as a centre-back. So we've gone a bit cold on that idea. I think a lot of the Leeds fans are saying that it might be Alioski and Llorente as their first choice centre-backs. Then they've obviously got Robin Koch. Ayling has been moved into centre-back again because they've got injury problems. Cooper's still to come back, so it's not clear. So out of all of them, Llorente's looks the most nailed player, and his passing bonus stats were comparable to Cooper's as well. In fact, I would probably expect, if anything, they might be better this season when he's more secure and in the lineup all the time. Maybe there's a bit of bias there. The guy's Spanish, so instantly I just think he can pass the ball perfectly. So I do like that. I mean, we've talked about it before. The fixtures for Leeds aren't great from a defensive point of view. I think he's probably more of a post-Overhaul pick, but he's gone for like a different, cheaper option there, maybe rather than double up on the Brighton defence. So Llorente, in terms of passing bonus, I mean, Webster may not get it in all three, even though we think it's possible, and it could be the same could be said for Llorente. So then I look at it and think, well, which one will get more clean sheets? I'd still probably just edge on the Brighton side. So like him as a pick, not sure about him pre-Overhaul 100%. That's my take on that. But the rest of the team, yeah, it's pretty banging, and he's covered all the captains. Can't see any risk there. I mean, if he's keeping Mane for all 3 games, that could be a masterstroke, to be honest. I haven't seen anyone with him in his team, and he could quite easily be great. When we look post-Overhaul and we set up a team like that, Mane's probably not a good idea because you can only captain one of them, right? And you're limiting a really powerful captain spot. Yeah, if you were going to captain Mane over Salah, maybe, but then you'd argue maybe get rid of Salah. So that's the only thing I'd say it limits you. The clear standout omission here, aside from Man City defence, is the man you're itching to say, isn't it, in midfield?
You know what? This might just be the fact that I had a couple of beers when I was down the pub watching St Johnstone earlier on tonight, but it's taken me until now, because I love the look of this team so much. It's taken me until now to realise there's no Bruno Fernandes in there.
Yeah.
And I've just about fallen off my seat. So, listen, he's gone for Mane. Mane is in there instead of Bruno. He's taken a risk. I like it.
He has.
It's going to be Salah.
But Bruno is captainable and will be captained in all of his games, or 2 out of the 3. Yeah. So it is a big risk.
I agree with that, and I'm not going to go without Bruno. I'll be having him, but for him, if he wants to have this as a second team, or if he's decided that he's going to go all out to try and win the 50 grand in the first 3 weeks, then why not? but no, okay. And on a serious note, it's a big risk to go without Bruno, and I think he seems to be aware of it.
He does, but I'm just looking now, right? So if you look at Sunday the 22nd of August, as I delve more into this, we've got Spurs versus Wolves, we've got Southampton versus Man United, and we've got Arsenal versus Chelsea. So on Sunday the 22nd, who's his captain? He hasn't got one.
I think he must be doing the start with Salah and move to Kane. Or what he could alternatively be doing is having Mane and moving Mane to Son.
This is true. So this is why the little bit of guidance might help us. But yeah, he's going to have to get a captain in this day. So as long as he addresses that and he's aware of it, I don't hate it. Again, like we've said multiple times, Bruno Fernandes post-Overhaul, I mean, even if he looks terrible in the first 3 weeks, he's probably going to be in everyone's team regardless. But if you're going to get away with it, it's probably now. So, yeah, fair enough. Personally, would have Bruno, though. Just going to put it out there.
I feel like we're looking at every team and just saying, yeah, this is a great team. Like, wow, this is exactly what we want. Which I think probably segues quite nicely into the next thing.
Yeah, 100%. So also Recluse, he's just posted a team here and he said, rate my trolls of the last season. So this is the final team we're going to be looking at, and I thought it was quite fitting. God, honestly, I just shudder looking at that team. Like, a lot of these guys have hurt me personally. I feel like they've come to my house and robbed me or something. Yeah, I've got especially Guido in goal. He pretty much is the reason why I didn't finish as high as I could have. Like at one point, I was like 23rd or something in the season overall ranking, and I didn't have Martinez. Do you know what I mean? And there's people sat there with like 200 and something points, and I've had Guita who literally got a string of not even just zeros, minus points sometimes. So the difference I dread to think of. I feel like if I'd just had Martinez instead, suddenly I'm like 50, 60 points up, and I'd be right up there. So yeah, I hate that guy with a passion, and he will be coming absolutely nowhere near my team. And there's many other guys there. Vestergaard leaves nightmares, from that second oval. Anyone in that team really bring up some memories for you there.
There's a lot of scar tissue here. So there's a few. Obviously, Vestergaard was horrific. I managed to avoid Gaeta and took great pleasure in the fact that he was conceding goals and all, and then getting booked. I think there was a game where he was. There was maybe at least 2 games where I think he was keeping a clean sheet into the 94th minute
and on 59 passes.
Yeah, conceded and got booked
and hit the bar. There was definitely a game where he hit the bar. Conceded and was on like 59. In fact, I think there was one game where he got 60 and then they took a pass off of him.
that would totally make sense for him. But I did have Werner for a little while. Wilson, I brought in Wilson thinking it was a great transfer, and then he goes and gets injured. And then I had no captain for I ended up taking him out. Had no captain for the game against Palace, and he ended up scoring and getting man of the match.
Brilliant.
So because it took him out for the injury.
I remember that. Yeah, so he came back earlier than we thought, and actually worked out to be an okay move as a result. If you'd just left him in, but then you end up using 2 transfers, right? One to bring him in, one to take him out, and he ended up getting points. Yeah, Fergie fell for that one as well from the hub.
And another one, Havertz. I mean, if we were actually going to assess this on this season, I actually think that there are some merits to it. I mean, Aubameyang could do well in the first game. Wilson, we've talked about, isn't a dreadful pick. I mean, Werner, okay, I think we can all agree that's probably not the best, given that they look like they're going to be bringing in a striker. But Havertz, I actually had Havertz for a little while at the end of the season, and he was a bit hit or miss, but I actually captained him for that haul that he got.
Oh, lovely.
At home, I think it was against Palace, possibly. Can't remember who it was against. Anyway, he scored a brace on a weekend where there was pretty bare options for captaincy, and I had him as captain. But I don't think he'll be. If they sign a new striker, I think his appeal is really diminished. But it's a great way to finish off with a fun team. But I think I'm going to have a sleepless night now.
100%. The only ones I actually fell for there, I think Maddison, who was actually pretty good for me in the small period that I had him, but he got injured, so yeah, that's probably why he's there. And I did have James Rodriguez because he all fooled us with his twinkling eyes in the first few weeks with his ridiculous hauls. I think it was like 20 points, 2 points, 20 points, and then there's a series of 2. Yeah. Love it. Okay, well, thanks for those, guys. I'm sorry we didn't get through all of them, but the video's already at an hour now, and we only did 10 of them, so that's just me and Niall. We got the ability to rabbit, apparently. But hopefully it was useful to you. We obviously talked through some of our thoughts there, and obviously they bring conversation points. Yeah, feel free to take the advice on board or not. At the end of the day, the first 3 weeks is a bit of a luck fest, and we get to fix our teams ultimately with some more data. So there's no in particular wrong answers for me. A quick nod to the membership area, as we always do at the end. A lot of the stats and thinking behind our decisions are based off of what we see in this area. The tackles, for example, for Pereira, that was brought up as a result of looking in the members area. Lots of useful stuff there. They are improving it as well. There's like a beta area which they're sort of changing at the moment. So get yourself on site, get yourself registered for that. It's definitely worth it over the season and really helps us. So that's it from me, and goodbye. Goodbye from you, Niall, I assume.
Goodbye. Yeah, I'll look forward to the next episode, hopefully. Maybe we'll get one in before the season, but we'll keep you all updated.
Yeah. Thanks a lot, guys. Bye-bye.